Yesterday I had this moment where the spontaneous nature of spirit came over me. I use the term spirit just because everyone will loosely have an idea of what that means. I was infused with something that made me feel as if I was going to burst at the seams, as if something was building up inside me to the point where it was going to overload my body's capacity to hold it, and I was just going to explode like a star would. And it was this moment where I was doing the most mundane thing you can possibly imagine. I was just going to run an errand real quick. And the weather was so beautiful. The colors of everything around me was so very piercing in my field of vision. The smell in the air, the breeze. I just started thinking to myself, I'm alive. What an amazing thing this is. I'm alive. People and animals all doing their own little unique thing, having their own little experience. As I'm taking it all in that moment, and I even started yelling out loud, I'm alive! and I'm letting out, woo! I'm alive! I felt like Ric Flair, woo! And I won't replicate it anymore, but yes, I was doing that out loud in that moment because of what I felt. Now, granted, I'm in a different space than most people with this stuff because I have endured over 4 years of torture in terms of how my body felt. And I am just now starting to feel normal again, and I can't even believe how good the body feels when it's functioning normally, when it's functioning correctly. I can't believe how good it feels just to be alive, man. To not be in pain 24/7, to just feel good and walk around being alive, man. It's unbelievable. What a gift this is. The infusion of that awe, the realization of what this experience is in that moment makes you feel like you're going to burst open with something, like a stargate's going to open in your chest and just boom, explode out of you. If you could bottle up what I'm talking about here and sell it, it would be the most valuable commodity in all of existence. And indeed, people have tried to do that since the beginning of time. This is seen in so many different ways. We understand it in a more modern sense through the self-help genre, the New Age philosophies, and really every religion that exists. It's trying to bottle up what it feels like to be infused with spirit and sold back to someone. In the case of religions, they bottle it up by taking that experience that is beyond words and putting words to it, writing it down on pieces of paper, and then giving you that book that says, here, this is your connection to spirit. Here, take a look. And the self-help New Age genre does it in a different way with how they try to get you into this idea that what I'm describing here will be a permanent state of being. You will ascend to another dimension where you will feel like I'm talking about here in every waking moment. You will be something else entirely. And really, the religions do it in their own way too. They just kind of push that realization towards the end of life, where when it's over, that's when you will experience that thing truly, if you follow these rules and guidelines. So what I learned yesterday and into today is the very important aspect of all of this as it relates to the understanding that all of this is like a dial controlling the volume on a radio. Sometimes the dial gets turned all the way up and all of the needles go into the red and the speakers explode with sound. It's very loud and you can feel the vibration of it in the floor all around you. It's reverberating so powerfully. But like any other system where it gets sent into the red, the needle that is, eventually there will be too much power for too long a period of time, and whatever it is will burst or break. You see this in electricity when a fuse blows, when the grid is overpowered. There's too much energy going through the grid for whatever reason, and boom, the fuse breaks and the system shuts down. And it's the same thing with your body. If it was infused with that energy given to us through that which created us, life itself, that thing that produces awe and unimaginable gratitude for the experience of being alive, when that overcomes you in any given moment, it's not something that is supposed to last indefinitely, because it would overwhelm your body. It would exhaust your capabilities to hold that much energy every waking moment of your life. In other words, part of becoming aware is understanding your role in moving that dial back and forth. Sometimes you will have experiences where it gets cranked all the way up, and then you have to come back into real life and integrate that experience in a way where it does not overwhelm you. And you can find the corollary to that when you turn the dial all the way back down to zero, where there's metaphorically no sound. There's no vibration rocking the floors. You don't feel anything. In these moments, you feel disconnected from life. You lose touch with that feeling of awe, that burst, that infusion into your body. You lose touch with it. And in those periods in time, you can feel like there is nothing there. Nothing has your back. Nothing is informing your experience. And these are the times when we lose faith. But understand that that is designed to be just as fleeting and temporary as when the dial is turned all the way up. This is why it is said that the path is narrow. Embodying a consistent state of being that simultaneously integrates both extremes of that volume knob getting turned one way or the other way. All the way up versus all the way down to zero. Even if that was your intention, because you have one of the experiences that I'm referring to here, and then let's say you go back home, get into your normal routine, attempting to integrate what just happened, and you've had this thing going on where a new neighbor moved in and they have a dog who just barks all of the time. For whatever reason, the dog just cannot stop barking, and this was very annoying. I can't believe this dog is just barking all day long. Well, you have the experience that I'm talking about here, and you come back into reality again. You come down off of that high, and you're right back into all of the things that were tearing you away from that before it happened. You're right back into the reality of all of the things that were preventing you from seeing life in this way. And due to the nature of this place, those things never go away. There's always something else involving our interaction with other people or just this world in general that will make it very difficult for you to be in that state of mind. Meaning it is not a realistic expectation to expect you to embody what I'm talking about here all of the time, every day, every moment. That's not how it's designed. It would overwhelm you. So the key is to understand that once you have the experience, it's in your memory, and you can turn that dial in your mind all the way up at any time and remember what it felt like. And accordingly, you don't need to actually access it or embody it in a way that would overload you and produce some kind of metaphorical supernova explosion in your own life where you just completely disappear from everyone and everything that you know. Metaphorically, you turn the knob right in the middle between 0 and full blast. And that is a sustainable volume to exist in this world with. You're not too high and you're not too low. Understanding that it's not your job to be the entity that embodies the Spirit. That's God's job. That's not your job. You're a part of it in the way that you are potentially able to express it if it allows you to do so, or if it gifts you with that experience from time to time. And indeed, that is how people have their minds all twisted up into a pretzel and they don't correctly understand what they're supposed to be doing, because most of the things that they're given as representations of what I'm talking about here turns them into some kind of superhero or mini messiah, where they take on the whole weight of the world on their shoulders. Metaphorically, a relationship between two humans is a good way to understand what I'm referring to here. Human relationships express themselves in a variety of different ways. The most common that we are aware of is a male-female romantic relationship, where in the beginning of the relationship there is the honeymoon phase, as it's referred to. And that's sort of what these fleeting experiences are. They are the honeymoon phase of your relationship with God. The moments where that relationship just is so clearly evident. In spite of everything that's going on in the world that I could perceive as bad or wrong or evil or whatever way you want to characterize it or classify it as. In spite of all of that, there are these transcendent moments where I know that something else exists that is beyond words in terms of its capacity to forgive and love and care for that which it created. When you have those realizations about what kind of awe it felt when it had the impulse to create us in the first place, no matter what has transpired through the free will interaction of all of the creations, which we see on planet Earth now, the original intent is that love, that expression of awe, the unimaginable gift of sentience, of awareness, being alive. What is this place? I have no idea. That's kind of always right there with these experiences. What is happening? Wow. This is incredible. How did I find myself here? How am I aware? That's the honeymoon phase of the relationship, when a male and a female first start dating, or as it was in the past, when they were first married. You have this blissful beginning to the relationship where everything is perfect. And then over time, through the experience of living together, through the experience of having the free will in the relationship to do whatever you want, in theory, the honeymoon phase turns into the mundane phase of actually living with that person. Year after year after year. And you start to notice certain things that you didn't notice initially when you were blinded by the honeymoon phase. And it takes a lot of work, a lot of honesty, a lot of integrity, a lot of loyalty to stick with that relationship through the lows that will inevitably come along with the highs that you initially experience. And just like any marriage will go through its periods when one of the people has some doubts about if they should be there with that person, you will have the same experiences in this place as it relates to your relationship with God, for lack of a better term. You will have those moments, those lows, when the volume's all the way down to zero. And you can't see any point in anything that's going on. You don't understand why anything is happening the way that it is happening. You lose touch with any kind of connection to that which created you in those moments. And a lot of people run away when it gets too hard like that. They take the easy way out. Instead of looking at themselves in the mirror and saying, there's this pattern playing out that is causing this disturbance in this relationship. Is it possible that I am doing something that is causing that to happen, even if on the surface I can point my finger at the other person and say, see, you're the reason that this is happening? Do you see how that's very similar to what certain philosophies do with this world, where they can point to endless amounts of evidence as the justification behind the idea that everything is evil? There's no redeeming quality to this place. They're not looking at themselves and seeing how they are contributing to what is going on here, even if they can tell themselves the story that they didn't have anything to do with it. It's something that happened way before they got here. This isn't my fault. Well, that gets a little deeper into the metaphor where we have the human-to-human romantic relationship that perpetuates the species here. But then there is generational relationships. Mother and father to their children. And then their children's children, and their children's children. On and on it goes. We as human beings have a generational relationship to those who came before us. And we could blame those who came before us for the reason that things are the way they are and abdicate all responsibility. Or we could stop for a second and look at what is going on in our own lives and see the patterns. How am I contributing to the things that led us to this place originally? Is there something that I'm doing along those lines? Obviously, as it relates to this metaphor and romantic relationships and the honeymoon phase, the ideal would be to live in that phase, embodying that energy for the rest of your life after you're married. I'm sure there are couples out there who have cracked the code, as it were, along these lines, and they have learned how to maintain that energy, but I can pretty much guarantee that it's not the dial turned all the way up that they're doing in those instances. They're closer to that end than they are to the zero, right? But they've found a way to maintain a certain honeymoon frequency without burning themselves out, at the same time that they maintain that frequency going through all of the challenges that we will all go through just living here, being alive, which are compounded a lot of the time when you add another person with their own problems into the mix, and then you have two people with two sets of problems and two sets of relationships trying to work together with each other, and that just makes it more difficult by default. But it's a very similar relationship that we have with that which created us. It's a marriage. We are children to that which created us. It's a father-son, mother-daughter relationship. And as you all know, those relationships have their ups and downs. Yesterday I had a honeymoon moment, and tomorrow I might have a divorce moment, right? I might have a moment where it gets turned all the way down. I feel a complete lack of connection, and I want to run away from everything that I'm saying right now. It's just the way it is being alive here. But no matter what happens to me, nothing can take away the memory of how you feel when that infusion is trying to burst out of you. And it's just unbelievable. I don't even know what to say. It's the greatest gift imaginable. And it's amazing. In those moments, there is no panic. There is no anxiety about the future. You are 100% in that moment. There is no other moment. You can't even imagine anything else. You're just purely present, surrounded by the awareness of the moment that you're in. It's unbelievable. What does a book that claims a covenant exists between God and you, requiring baby penises to be cut, have to do with what I'm talking about here? What does a book exalting a man named Muhammad who had sex with children have to do with what I'm talking about here? What does an organization that claims to be the vicar of Christ on planet Earth that simultaneously molests children have to do with what I'm talking about here? Most of the people that put themselves out there as some kind of enlightened guru in this fashion aren't even capable of having a real, true relationship with another human being, whether that's romantic, a friendship, or with the people who created them. What can someone like that, who can't even have the relationship with another person, possibly teach you about having a relationship with God? Because they're one and the same thing. Maintaining a relationship with one of its children is the same as maintaining a relationship with it, because one is a reflection of the other. I know the rational mind will say, oh, well, that's not the same thing. I can get along with somebody's parents and not their children. No, you're missing the point. It's a metaphor. Okay? Trust me, I do it too. We were made in its image, and our design is to treat each other as it would treat us. So in that way, the relationship is the same. Someone who genuinely cares about you and might know more than the average person would never use deception to try to teach you a lesson. There's no need for that. The truth is just self-evident. When you have the eyes to see it, you don't need to trick anybody into developing that ability. And indeed, the whole point of putting information out there is so that everyone can eventually see it for themselves. The whole point of putting information out there is to make yourself redundant eventually. The ideal would be you look up one day and people are just saying the things that you were saying earlier. They're just treating it like it's common knowledge that everybody knew now. Good. That's the point. If it is the real truth, that's your only goal. What other goal is there than people seeing the reality of what is going on? Indeed, the words are just a carrier for that infusion of awe. The vocal cords embody the frequency like the dial and the speakers that it controls, and the words just encase the frequency and deliver it to someone else. Meaning you could say 1,000,000 words about it, and as long as the frequency that is being encased by the words doesn't change, there will never be anything lost in translation. The deception at work trying to discredit what I am talking about here and present itself as the thing that I am talking about here is designed principally to take the same words and encase a different frequency within them. So that someone can say, oh, those two people are similar. They have the same message. They must be telling me the same thing. And then you go listen to that person, you trust them, you're in a relationship with them, and they deceive you with the vibration that is embedded into their words that are pretending to be something else. And like all good scams, they use the familiar terms like heart and love and God. Being aware is unimaginable. I mean, I couldn't even imagine what is transpiring right now. Just the fact that I'm sitting here speaking to you is just, what is going on? It's unbelievable. Being alive is amazing. What is happening? What is this experience? I don't know. I'm in awe of it. The coordination, the relationships, the interaction, the experience is awe. And nothing, anywhere, ever can take that away from us. Nothing can take that idea away because it's self-evident. It's just awe. I'm alive.